Hi everyone, welcome to lecture number 12 for EDUC2065, Professionalism, Leadership and Management in Early Childhood. Okay, so on the agenda for this lecture is doing a little bit of a deeper dive into what some of the standards and requirements are of early childhood teachers and educators in Western Australia. We're going to have a look at it through the lens of the EITSL network, so the Australian Institute for Teachers and School Leadership. We're also going to have a look at what are the standards and requirements expected of us according to the Australian Children's Education and Care Quality Authority, a CEQA or a SEQA. Then we're going to have a look at it through the lens of the Teachers Registration Board of Western Australia and the Early Childhood Australia Code of Ethics document that we've been examining over the past few weeks. Improving teacher quality is an essential part of Australia's reform efforts to improve student attainment and ensure that it has a world-class system of education. Education systems, both internationally and locally, have developed professional standards to attract, develop, recognise and retain quality teachers. Standards contribute to the professionalisation of teaching and raise the status of the profession. So professional standards for teachers and teacher registration ensures the integrity and accountability of the profession, and it recognises the significance of teaching as a profession and the position of trust and responsibility that teachers hold within society. But before teacher registration can happen, there are a lot of other things that need to happen first. So the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership, we'll refer to as EITSL, provides national leadership for all Australian states and territories in promoting excellence in the profession of teaching and in school leadership. It does this by providing explicit standards that guide teachers in their work to improve students' level of educational achievement. We're going to discuss these in the tutorials this week. You are enrolled in an initial teacher education program, an ITE program, so the Bachelor of Education for ECE, and EITSL believe that quality teaching starts with high quality teacher preparation. Now in this course we've discussed a CEQA in the context of them being the national authority which oversees the implementation of the NQF, the National Quality Framework, which includes the national laws and regulations, the National Quality Standard and the assessment and rating process. We've also discussed the Department of Local Government Education and Care Regulatory Unit, ECRU, which is the state body here in Western Australia, which does this type of work for a CEQA at the state level, and it assesses childcare centres. Well, under the National Quality Framework, the NQF, a CEQA also publishes a list of approved programs for early childhood education and care. In other words, your degree, the program that you're currently completing. Notre Dame, so we, submit a detailed outline of the program, including its length, the delivery mode, and any supervised professional experience and evidence of how the program satisfies a CEQA's requirements, as well as lots of other documentary evidence such as course handbooks, course outlines, internal approvals and assessment documents and other relevant policy documents. And the university has to pay a fee to have the degree or program assessed and approved by a CEQA. And this has to occur every 5 years. So Notre Dame, as an ITE provider, is required to prepare and submit evidence for accreditation, which is assessed by a panel of education experts. And because this has to happen every 5 years, the program, so the degree, the design and assessment processes need to identify where each graduate teacher standard is taught throughout the course of your degree, where it's practiced, where it's assessed, and how do we require that you as pre-service teachers have demonstrated successful performance against all of the graduate teacher standards prior to graduation. We also pay a fee for this service. So EITSL is national, like a CEQA, and here in Western Australia we also have the Teacher Registration Board, who does this work for EITSL at the state level, and it also assesses these initial teacher education programs and ensures that teachers are registered. In 2012, the Western Australian Government introduced new legislation to manage teacher registration, and the Teacher Registration Act of 2012 was passed by Parliament. The TRB-WA came into operation in December of 2012 as the body that is responsible for registering teachers across Western Australia. The primary functions of the TRB of Western Australia is that it maintains an up-to-date register of all teachers operating in Western Australia. It also develops and publishes professional standards for teachers and develops and publishes accreditation standards. And this includes things like your degree and program. It needs to make the best interests of children its paramount consideration in all decision making. And it also charges us $95 a year. There's an annual fee of $95 to maintain our registration and keep it current. There are 4 forms of registration as a teacher. These are full registration, provisional registration, non-practicing registration, and limited registration. A teacher is initially granted provisional registration, and this indicates that they meet the graduate career stage of the National Professional Standards for Teachers. Provisional registration status is granted when you've been recognised as a teacher, but you have not yet met the requirements for registered teacher status. So there's an initial period of registration. During that initial period, during which a new teacher has a sort of form of licence that allows them to be employed as a teacher and then to undertake the workplace learning and development that then equips them to meet the requirements for becoming fully registered. To achieve full registration, teachers need to demonstrate achievement of the proficient career stage of the National Professional Standards for Teachers. Evidence of performance is required at this proficient career stage of the standards, and this type of evidence is presented by a teacher who is seeking full registration, and it should cover a broad scope of the teacher's knowledge, practice and engagement. It should also demonstrate achievement of each of the 7 standards and take account of each of the descriptors. A piece of evidence can address multiple descriptors within and across the standards. In an effort to move from a provisionally registered teacher to a completely fully registered teacher, this status is not an automatic process, and teachers employed in all sectors, so public, independent and Catholic systems, all go through the same process. If you choose to apply for complete fully registered status, then you're required to have taught in an educational venue in Western Australia or across Australia or New Zealand for a minimum of 100 days during the last 5 years. You'd also need to have worked with a mentor for at least 100 days, and typically that mentor is a fully registered teacher, and also to have collected and retained evidence that demonstrates that you've met that proficient career stage of the National Professional Standards for Teachers. Identifying a registered teacher with recent and relevant experience who can offer you appropriate support and guidance and who's willing to be your mentor is a good idea once you achieve your provisional registration and you're working in a school. Your chosen mentor will be somebody that you work with and must not have a perceived or potential conflict of interest, e.g. not your mum. You need to inform your principal that you've commenced the provisionally registered teacher to fully registered teacher process, because your principal is required to confirm that you've completed all the process requirements, including those 100 teaching days, while supported by your mentor as part of that application process. When you complete that minimum of 100 teaching days while you're supported by your mentor, during that time, you'll need to meet regularly with them to discuss your progress, collect supporting evidence and notes from your classes and activities and experience so that you can demonstrate your ability to meet the National Professional Standards for Teachers at that proficient career stage. You really should retain this evidence as it may be requested in support of your application. If you don't meet the requirements for full registration at the end of your 3-year provisional registration period, then you need to renew your membership as a provisionally registered teacher. So you get another extension. The Teachers Registration Board of Western Australia occasionally will have amendments to some of the requirements that are associated with being provisionally registered or fully registered. Late in December or mid-December in 2023, there were a number of amendments that came into effect that it's really important that you are aware of. One of the main aspects of this was some sort of a division of what provisional registration entails. So instead of it just being a one sort of category, it's actually now divided into two. And so these subcategories of provisional registration are the graduate teacher and returning teacher categories. So it is worthwhile just having a little bit of a look at the TRB website, the changes that are linked up there, just so that you can have a close look at what does a graduate teacher provisional registration entail, because this will apply to you as you graduate and finish your degree. Some of the other changes that came into effect in 2023, at the end of 2023, were what is the definition of impairment, what's the definition of serious misconduct or serious incompetence, notifications of child safety breaches and any prosecutions were simplified and updated, so that process has become a lot more streamlined. The board, the TRB, can also issue now an interim order if a teacher poses an unacceptable risk of harm, rather than previously they had to wait for that risk to be imminent. So you can see that that's a tightening of just making sure that we are absolutely, wherever possible, minimising any risk of harm to students. Their investigation powers were also increased, again, a tightening, and making sure that there were always an opportunity for us to be able to reduce or minimise harm at any stage. If you want to have a look at some of the other changes, they are available for you to glance through. You can see just being scrolled through there. There are a few minor extra ones that you may or may not want to be having a look at. Just know that the TRB may make changes over time, and because we are all aiming to be or currently registered as teachers, it's good to keep abreast of all of these changes. So we're going to do something a little bit different in this lecture. I'm actually going to send you off to another video and then invite you to come back to this lecture. We're going to do that twice on this slide and the next slide. This video that I'm going to send you off to, so if you've got the lecture PDFs downloaded from Blackboard, that link at the top there will be live and you should just be able to click it and head there, or you can type it into your browser if you choose. This is a short video, no more than 3 minutes, from AITSL. And it is simply presenting the case for why we need to have Australian professional standards for teachers in terms of meeting the challenge of what will modern kids need now and as they grow into the adults of the future. So it does talk a little bit about the current global situation in terms of how connected we are, both digitally and also being able to communicate with people across the globe, and how teachers and schools and school systems are ensuring that modern learning needs are being met. So I invite you now to pause this lecture, find the link, go and watch this 3-minute video. It is animated, so it's really reasonably easy to watch, and then come back here when you're ready, and we are going to head to the second video. Okay, welcome back. I'm hopeful that you have watched the first video. The reason I can't show them here is for copyright infringement. So the second video that I'm about to send you off to go and have a look at before returning to this lecture is only about 1.5 minutes long, and it is a teacher who, Danielle here, who you can see, she has gone through the process of accreditation in terms of the National Professional Standards, and she's just sharing her experience and providing some reflection and advice for teachers who are also going through that process. Work on those National Professional Standards for teachers, so the standards, commenced under the auspices of the Ministerial Council for Education, Early Childhood Development and Youth Affairs, sometimes referred to as MCEDYA. And this was back in 2009. A significant amount of work was undertaken by the National Standards subgroup of the Australian Education, Early Childhood Development and Youth Affairs Senior Officials Committee during 2009-2010. So she's going to help you understand that certification process. She talks about how to be a better practitioner, how to position ourselves as teachers, as learners ourselves, how to improve our practice and actually know that we're improving our practice, and to have a deep knowledge of the Australian professional standards. So again, I invite you now to pause this video, click on the link on the PDF and head over and listen to Danielle reflect, and then come back here when you're ready. Okay, so I'm hopeful that you're back now to this lecture and that you have watched those prior to videos, because they will help deepen and inform your understanding of why we have these professional standards. So as I said before, AITSL provide explicit standards, and these guide teachers in their work to improve students' level of educational achievement. It is a public statement of what constitutes quality teaching. Now, there are 7 standards which outline what teachers should know and what teachers should be able to do. The standards are interconnected, interdependent, and they do overlap at times. The standards provide a framework that makes clear that the knowledge, practice, and professional engagement required can be developed across 4 career stages, and these are graduate, proficient, highly accomplished, and lead. The standards define the work of teachers, and they do make explicit the elements of high quality, effective teaching in 21st century schools. And this results in improved educational outcomes for students. Having those 4 career stages gives everybody a common understanding and a language for discourse between teachers, teacher educators, teacher organisations, professional associations, and all the public. The standards are grouped into 3 domains of teaching. Standard 1 links to professional knowledge to facilitate student learning. Standard 2 also links to professional knowledge, and this is a sound understanding for pedagogy. So this professional knowledge domain means that teachers know how to structure their lessons to meet the physical, social, and intellectual development and characteristics of their students. Teachers understand what constitutes effective, developmentally appropriate strategies in their learning and teaching programs, and they use this knowledge to make the content meaningful for students. So if we think about the role of play in early childhood and education and care settings, using the knowledge of learning theories and play stages to develop appropriate play activities would fall under this category. Knowledge of child development, understanding, the subject content, like understanding what we do need to know for maths and for English and for science and HASS and ICT and RE, etc. So all of that professional knowledge is encapsulated in that first domain. Standards 3, 4, and 5 all link to the domain of professional practice. And this is when teachers operate effectively at all stages of their teaching and learning cycle, including planning for learning and assessment, developing learning programs, the actual teaching, continuous assessment for and of learning, providing feedback on student learning, reporting to parents and carers, and evaluating all aspects of their teaching practice. We need to be able to select and apply skills in lesson planning and lesson delivery, including the use of our questioning techniques and our collaborative strategies. There are strong links to the Creating Learning Environments unit, the Guiding Behaviour unit, and the types of things that you will be doing on prac. Standards 6 and 7 are linked to the professional engagement domain. This is where teachers demonstrate respect and professionalism in all their interactions with students, colleagues, parents, carers, and the community. Teachers value opportunities to engage with their school communities within and beyond the classroom to enrich the educational context for students. And these are very strong links to what you did on prac and what you'll do again on your next prac. If you haven't already done so, you really should read through the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership Professional Standards for Teachers. Now, these are available on Blackboard, but you can also find them online. In fact, we are going to be going through these in the tutorial, and we are going to reflect upon your own professional development and your professional growth journey over your time at uni so far. This is a very important part of this unit, and it is something that you really do need to know. So please insist for yourself that you challenge yourself to become very familiar with all of these standards. Okay, so we're going to have a look now at this point in the lecture about ethical practice and ethics as teachers. Ethics or ethical behaviour encompasses a range of values relating to morality and what's considered to be the right thing to do. And ethics involves considerations of people's beliefs. Is this a right thing to do or a wrong thing to do? Is this appropriate or inappropriate? Is this good or bad? Every profession has implicit understandings among its members about what's right and proper, and this forms the basis of ethical conduct for that profession. Some professions have pursued the development of written codes of ethics, which make explicit the standard of acceptable behaviour for that profession and serves to guide members in their everyday decision making. When values underpin our responses and choices, ethics is at work. In some instances, our decision making is difficult because there can be different solutions or responses to any given situation, and each of those responses might seem appropriate. We call these types of situations ethical dilemmas, and they may require considerable negotiations by all concerned to achieve an ethical outcome for everyone. The ethical nature of working with children and families is often recognised in services by the adoption of some sort of professional code of ethics. Teaching is a vital profession with far-reaching effects. Ethically, it rests on the primary moral values of justice, respect, and responsible care. You'll know from your Assessment 3, your Management and Leadership Report, that Early Childhood Australia published a code of ethics, and it's presented under a number of different categories that reflect our broad range of responsibilities. The codes of ethics have been described as a guide to moral practice, like a set of principles from which to understand our actions and relationships. And this means that codes need to be revised regularly in order to make sure they reflect contemporary contexts. This code is made up of 5 sections which identify commitments to children, families, colleagues, the profession as a whole, and communities. Committing to or using the code is about being willing to recognise the complexities inherent in our work and the need to think carefully before we act. And adopting this code means that we honour these values, qualities, and processes. Okay, so on this slide and the next, I'm going to just go through a couple of scenarios. I'm just going to share them with you, and then I would love for you to come ready to have thought about them in between the time you've watched the lecture and when the tutorial begins, because I'm going to have them in the tutorial as well and be posing some questions to you. So if you can think about your thoughts around these particular scenarios in the meantime, that would equip you well for the tutorial. So this is the first scenario. At a staff meeting in a childcare centre, a staff member makes the comment, "Oh, it'd be so much easier for us if we worked with the children and didn't have to think about their parents." Several other staff members laugh at this comment and they say, "Yeah, we agree." Nobody challenges this opinion. The question to you is, what are some of the ethical issues with this staff member's comment? Now, in this example, the staff member expresses her frustration with the need to work with parents. And now this suggests that she's holding particular values or beliefs about all parents, which seem to conflict with the rights of families to work in partnership with the professionals who care for and educate their children. The agreement by some staff and the silence of other staff also reveals their value opinions in terms of this particular scenario. So come ready just to maybe talk about this particular scenario and maybe reflect on your prac, and if there are any scenarios similar to this one where potentially statements about parents have been made by colleagues or staff members, obviously keeping confidential any details, but how do we actually speak about partnerships with families when there are challenges? Because obviously this statement has come from someone who's experienced some challenges with some parents. So we'll talk about this one all together at the tutorial. The second scenario that I want to share with you in terms of an ethical practice is about May. So May's mother gives Kelly, who's one of the staff in the 2 to 3 year olds room, a set of alphabet cards, and she suggests that maybe Kelly could introduce the alphabet to the other children because May is learning her alphabet at home and she's really good at it. Kelly smiles politely and says, "We don't teach the alphabet in this room." Now, after May's mother has left, Kelly puts the cards away in the storeroom. Can you think of different ways that Kelly could have responded to May's mother, which would have shown respect for the parent's request without compromising her own beliefs about appropriate literacy practice for toddlers? So that is your challenge to have a little think about before you come again tomorrow. Kelly's response that you can see to May's mother is influenced by her values and beliefs, and most people's responses are informed by both of these things. This is a good example of an ethical dilemma because on the one hand, Kelly is expected to base her practice on research evidence combined with her professional experience and knowledge, which might confirm that it is inappropriate to teach the alphabet specifically to toddlers. But at the same time, Kelly does have an ethical responsibility to listen to parents' requests and to incorporate their ideas into the program where possible. Kelly's also expected to be able to explain the reasons for her program decisions to others, and this includes parents. Kelly's response to this mother's request could be considered inappropriate from an early education perspective. However, while Kelly was polite to the mother, she didn't explain the reasons behind the decision not to teach the alphabet, which left the mother unsure why her request was ignored, even though May has enjoyed learning the alphabet at home. So you can see how there can be different views on the same situation. So have a little, again, reflection on this particular scenario, and if there have been similar scenarios or situations that you have observed or encountered yourselves in your roles as pre-service teachers, and then we'll discuss these together at the tutorial. So in summary, AIDSL supports teachers to reflect on their practice and grow their expertise according to the standards so that we can prioritise student learning. ASEQA supports all governments and the early childhood education and care sector to provide guidance, resources and services to improve outcomes for children. The Teachers Registration Board of Western Australia regulates the teaching profession in the best interests of children. And a code of ethics aims to unite caregivers and educators to provide a common basis for decisions and actions. The principles in those code of ethics will be reflected in the policies which schools and services develop themselves as a guide to their daily practice. Thanks for listening, everyone. I will see you at the tutorial.